So, yeah, this is Baruch Flashman. I'm over at the Tikkun Elevator call out. I'm still broadcasting, or whatever you say. They saying the shear from beautiful the land, Florida. So I just have a few moments in between working over here. Let's look at the Zohar to continue on where we had the idea of what happens at nighttime, what happens at daytime, what's going on with all of that. And he mentioned some very specific things from the Uriah Kodesh, which we have to remember. And it said at the nighttime, Rachel, whose position in relationship to the spiritual world of Zeranpin is from his chest downwards to his feet. At the nighttime, she completely evacuates that place, and only her Kesser remains in Atzilus, Olam Atzilus, and all the rest of her goes down to try to work on returning the soul, the lost particles of light that are in Olam Bia, or Bria. Then it says, as midnight comes, that she goes completely and totally into Bria. And at that time, all that is left of her is an impression on the heart of Zeranpin. And she calls out through the night to Zeranpin, wanting to make yichud, wanting to get back to Atzilus, want to grow up, want to face him, want to hug him. That's her night. But how does this actually take place? It takes place by us. That if we're able to awaken at the midnight hour, and the Brethren of Chassidim are really big into this idea, and they say that every 2 hours, 2 hours before the physical chatzos, or 2 hours afterwards, are considered to be this midnight hour. Now the Breslever hold that the concept of what you need to do here is to go to sleep and break your sleep and get up for this song. So here's some ideas about this, and we're learning the Zohar now, and let's see what we could do. I guess we'll read it down below because for the sake of these things are not so easy to remember if you're not doing it all the time, like I am. I'm really get involved with this stuff. So Rebbe Chia says like this: when night begins to fall, the shim shenate lamei, and the sun is going to go. It says meo means to enter. It's gonna disappear. So he's translating. So everything is going dark. That it is really, really inclined very far to the west. He says the ma'arav v'karov lishko. It's very close to disappearing. Now let's try to understand this. Zeranpin is the spiritual predator. Let's say something before that. The concept of Kabbalah is that there is only one reality, but we live in a mixed up place. And there is a progression from that one reality to the place that we are. So the first progression that we understand is called Atzilus. Atzilus is almost nothing, but it has a certain functionality to it. It works in a parts of kind of way, a system. What's the system doing? It's taking the light of nothing and it's making it, clothing it over and over and over again to make it into something. And the something can be quite detailed because you could make a something out of a something, out of a something, out of a something, and parts of after parts of after parts of. There's partsufim within each sphera. And each sphera has partsufim in it, and each partsuf has more spheres. So it goes on and on and on. But you have to understand that's a possibility. We don't need to know all of those details. All we need to know is that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is wrapped, that is the truth of nothing. Nothing. Just pure mind. Think about your mind for a moment, and you realize that your mind has no physicality to it. Well, it's not your brain. It's this intellect. Now, intellect can go a lot of different ways once it gets into a human being and into a body, and mostly it works out bad. But here we're talking about, so Zer Anpin is called the sun. So the sun is about to go away. Shebe'erev nechloshim muchosav ad shebetzetzach. So his mochin gets so weak until when night comes, they're completely and totally leave them. That's what we're talking about in the Hakdama that was from yesterday's year. So we talked about the concept of a rishimo, of an impression that's left, and that's all there is. That was gone. He's gone. Then is chalish tukfe. Then even the shimo leaves. Oz nechlash tukfaso shal the shemesh uzeran. Behind the shechozik machoisav nechloshev. That is the strength of the power of his moichid. What's the moichid? The energy, the consciousness, the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, all those things that are purely attached to the benimius of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Keden shalta smala umishkach dina. Therefore, you see, there's a shlita of the left hand, left. Mishtacha dina ba'alma v'ispashet. You understand that dinim come from the side of the left. Now, this is a rear. So he's telling you that the organization of the template, which is Zer Anpin, is the spiritual forefather of our reality. But he is only in the form of a partzuf. This is the Zer Anpin exists in all partzuf, in all worlds. So there's a Zer Anpin of Atzilus, of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. There's a Zer Anpin in all of them. But the one that we're concerned about is the original template. That is, the light of the Ein Sof shines through Zer Anpin towards all the other Zer Anpins in all the other worlds. That's what's coming towards us until it's finally clothed in human beings. So Sholid has small. So what happens is that at nighttime comes, Zer Anpin, which is the sun, stops shining. Right? It's night. So the darkness, which is din. Now think about it in your own life. Everybody has crises. There are many tests over in our lives, over and over and over again. Bar minan, should not happen. But unfortunately, we have to realize that Hashem has done a lot of different ways of working on a balance scale with us that we don't understand. Incidentally, Zer Anpin is the balance scale. So this has something to do with us if we can learn how to achieve balance. Okay, because in the time of nighttime, that's when the midas adin really gets started. Look, then boy bar nashla solo the yishkak usik memari. He says tzarach adam, so therefore man has to have this in mind. Sheyim says shas ratzon, try to find the time of acceptance. He says he's talking about darkness. Imagine that's what we're trying to get to. He says, imagine the darkness of your own life, the places where you don't really understand. What do I do? What am I going to do? And this is the time that you need to make contact because you're living in darkness, which is constant katness of the moach. This is the constriction of the thinking. So he said, "Sheyim shas ratzon nerakodesh baruch to find this time that's really good time. Kadei shelo yishlod bo adin, so the din should not take him over." A lot of times I think that when I've been in really bad situations, and I've lost it quite a few times in my life, it doesn't seem like that. It seems either like fright or fear or, in my case, anger. And so the anger takes over. But that's a tremendous constriction to be in that place. You don't really see I don't really see the predicament I'm in. I can't really see God's hand in this. Let's go on. V'amar Rebbe Yosef. Rebbe Yosef says, "V'chein Amar Rebbe Yosef." So we have Rebbe Chia, Rebbe Yosef talk. Kad not the shimsha v'yischalosh. So the sun goes down. K'shenoitach Hashemes levo v'lishkoya. So it's going to become night. It's going to go to shkia. With no erev. This is we're saying right at the time of the turn into night. V'nechlosh kocho. And now you look at the sun. Look at the sun in the west. And looking really, really big. But there's very little light coming out of it. So he says, "Kedin ispatach chad psicha b'shimsha." So then, at this time, there's an opening. This is pure poetic. An opening takes place in the sun. Az niftach pasach echad pesach echad b'shemesh. there's an door. There's a, I can't even. He says, look at the sun. I used to have a friend, Yonah Chaikin, great person, lived in Hebron. Uh, he used to say to me, he says, now you see, when you see the sun up above, you could barely see it, but as it falls, you could see it more and more. And as you get closer to the horizon, it gets bigger. It gets real big. So imagine, because of the gases of the earth, I guess he said that's what he's thinking. He's a physicist, so that's really what's happening there. It's distorting. Well, it's making it look very big, but also very calm. It's not shining very hard. So he says, let's go back and read. Oz niftach, as the sun is going down, that big bubble sun. Pasuk Pesach, it opens up a Pesach echad b'shemesh. There's a doorway, opens in the sun. V'hu shar k'nisis oro. This is the place where the light comes out from. V'derek sham shoef as a shefa. And this is the place where the strength comes from. Now, I'm not sure I understand it, but we'll go on. Ubo ola mistaleches harasa. So he says that the original sun, that is the sun that's we know as the sun, shines. It has originally within it a little doorway, and all the energy of the sun comes out from that door. This is all metaphoric. And he says, and when it goes down, the reverse happens. It goes into in other words, the door opens, and the light gets drawn through that opening in the sun, and dark comes back behind it. Something like that. The smaller shalit, and what happens is Gevurah, which is din, is now in control. The small shuhadin shalit ba'olim v'yitzchak kari bered dechose. This is really interesting. Yitzchak is kosher Gevurah, absolutely kosher. I've said this in Shiurim before. Is if you're reading the parsha that has to do with Yitzchak, you'll see that nobody really fights with Yitzchak. It's no mention of it. Nobody's struggling with him. Are they? They maybe try, Avimelech, this and that, but in the end, it comes out that they all know that I don't want to mess with this guy. He is tough. This is an aspect of the Jewish people. We're still here. That is the Gevurah of Yitzchak. So Yitzchak kari bere b'chtachose. So Yitzchak, let's translate. Yitzchak shuhu so the Gevurah dezah. So he's the Gevurah Zer Anpin. Korev Ber Tachtov, he digs out a well underneath himself. Behind the Shachagavuros Miskanos as a Malchus Anikras Bear. Now let's go back over these words. It's a lot of deep metaphor. Yitzchak Shuhu So the Gevurah of the Zer Anpin. Yitzchak is the secret of the Gevurah of the Zer Anpin. The Zer Anpin we're talking about purely Kodesh. He says, Korev Ber Tachtov, he digs a well underneath himself. And now he's going to say, what's that well? The Hainish Gavuros, what did the Gavuros do? The digging, that's Gevurah. Once again, you're making something. Because a Gevurah is it's a squeezing of the light. In contrast to Chesed, which is always expansion of the light. He says, Asher Gavuros and Misaknos as a Malchus, they rebuild Malchus. Maybe rebuild is not the right word. Maybe the word is build Malchus. Understand, I've said this many times in Shiurim, and I don't know how many people ever listen to these things, but you have to know this. Malchus is made out of Gevuros. Gevuros minimize light. It's called the Hismatus of the light, of Or. Hismatus Or. Hismatus Or makes them more physical. And as Gevurah, that's a job of Gevurah. Gevurah is always making physical. So why they say that Levium, which represent Gevurah, are a lot of times really wealthy. Because the concept of getting a hold of it, they know how to reach out with their hand to get it. Now that's my metaphor. I don't know for sure. V'yitzchak shuhu so the Gevurah, we'll read it again, does not Koreh ber tachtav, he digs a well underneath himself. The Hainish Gevurah Besaknos is a malchus, that means that they are mismayat the light sufficiently that it could be absorbed by malchus anikras bear, who is called a well. Now, there's only one more thing that I need to say. Let me see. Masaktas and Malchus and Nicholas Bear. I can't think of what I wanted to say. It went off. This is Baruch Flashman. I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we'll get a little bit more on the next station.